What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks for coming here, hanging out with us, having a beer, some conversations. We're going to jump right into the show. If you've got any questions, comments, let us know what you're drinking. Drop it in the comments. So we'd love to chat with you, see what's going on. And with that said, we're going to make this thing happen. If I can get in. No, is that? No, is that? Okay, there we go. This darn software, guys. All right, here we go. Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. Time to have a drink, have some conversations, talk about the Super Bowl, reminisce on the Super Bowl last weekend and what was going on. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Feeling 100%
Well,
better this week compared to last week.
Good.
So, yes. How about
That's
you,
exciting.
Tim?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm doing all right, man. So cranking along here. It's been quite rainy lately. So just dreary. We had our what we call false spring here, where we get really nice weather for a little while. It happens every year. And now it's back. We're dipping down to the 30s again at night. So, fun while it was last. I broke out my freshies, Brian, for the cologne heads.
Yes.
You wear your darker, deeper, richer, spicier scents in the cold weather, and then fresh, citrus and greenery and all that. So I got excited to break out my spring fragrances.
All
Brian.
your aquatic tropical
My
stuff.
aquatics, yeah.
All
But
your
we're back.
coconuts and mangoes and everything else.
Yeah, but now I'm excited to go back to my, spices and woods and all of that stuff. So we'll just ride with whatever we get here. Yeah.
It sounds good.
Mo Mike Nate, how you doing?
Doing well. I'm sticking with my 1 cent ever, which is the Old Spice Classic.
Rock and
That's
roll,
my
man.
ride or die.
Yeah.
Stouts are for summer, Old Spices for year-round scents.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, today was wet and cold and not fun. My shoes got soaked through about halfway through my day, and they won't let you go home when your socks and your shoes are wet and you're just kind of
Yeah.
walking around with wet foot all day. They don't let you get on work early for that. So I'm not gonna
Tell them
be
you're
here.
worried about trench foot and you need to, you're like,
That's what
look,
I
guys,
tried to
this
say, and they're like, "You're not on the front. We don't know what to tell you."
terrible. Sorry for your suffering, Nate. I'm
Try
glad you
digging
made
a
it through it
foxhole
there.
and see if that works for you.
Yeah, but my shovel tool doesn't really cut through asphalt pretty easily.
Oh, okay.
That's too bad. Terrible times. Terrible times. Well, guys, speaking of the Super Bowl, always commercials are fun. It was a blowout. There's not a whole lot to talk about on the
Yeah.
game. I mean, Eagles just walked all over the Chiefs in that. I don't think anyone told the Chiefs it was a Super Bowl. They thought maybe they were playing some backyard weekend football, but
I did see something, and that's not. I usually am not getting all the analysis stuff, but apparently there was a hit where Mahomes went down on his side, and you could see. I saw a slow motion of it where his head just kind of snapped down and hit the ground, and they speculated that he may have actually had some sort of a head injury or head trauma that scrambled his noggin, and his
okay.
playing from there on out was reflective of that. And I guess it happened earlier in the game. I didn't see that until afterwards, so I'm like, well, that kind of checks out because it looked like they didn't show up at all. Like, I don't know who was
It
there,
did.
but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't the team that would get you to the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I hope dude's okay. I don't know anything more than that. I just saw that shot, and I'm like, well, I know if that were me, I probably wouldn't get up for another like a week or something
For a
like
while.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think anybody who listens to our show on the regular knows that we're not huge sports fans. We do jump on. We're all about getting together for a Super Bowl party, having some beer and nachos and all that. But that being said, when you get to a game like the Super Bowl, you do expect a good game.
Yes.
You've got the two best teams going up against each other, and it just wasn't. And Atlanta, we don't have any room to talk about, performance in the Super Bowl. So
True.
It's just not going to happen. But the best part of the Super Bowl, I think, is the commercials. And there were a lot of good ones. We're going to talk about some of the beer commercials here, kind of go over what they have. But what was Nate? You've already told us you didn't watch the Super Bowl, so you have
Correct.
nothing to add here. But Brian, commercial wise, what was your favorite commercial?
Yeah, it's tough. I got a few that were like a chuckle. Like I got a
Okay.
chuckle out of the Alien one. What was it called? Chazbo or something goes home or something like that.
Was
I
it the
think
pizza rolls commercial
I think that was I
with
think it was
Tim
pizza.
Robinson?
Yes, I think that was the
Okay,
one
Winners
that
walk?
I
gave me a
enjoyed that.
chuckle.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
I kind of got a. I was amused by the big men on the cul-de-sac with Bud Light one where they did the party. It was kind of
Yeah.
fun. You know, the whole like something about your lawnmower does barbecues like or grills or something like that. No, my grill cuts grass, and I spent
Yeah.
all my money on it. So
Yeah.
I found that was kind of amusing. It was good. Uh, I like Willem Dafoe, so his little pickleball thing was fun to watch. It was amusing. It was again, all of it was just kind of amusing. It might put a smile on your face, but none of it was too super memorable
I
for
think that's
me.
pretty
Yeah,
par for the course, right? You get a
yeah,
chuckle out of something. That Tim Robinson, he's just so odd. There
yes,
that was just like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this.
yeah,
If
exactly.
you know that sketch.
That's
So
right. So we didn't know him as well as you did. He didn't open up
yeah,
to us, and the kids are
yeah,
just destroyed. Yeah. Anyway,
right, right.
that was
So,
amusing. Yeah.
but beer. So we had Budweiser, Mick Ultra, Stella Artois, Bud Light, and Coors Light had their commercials. And Budweiser, one of theirs. I don't know if there were others, but I did catch this one, Brian. You made a note of the first delivery, the one with the Clydesdale baby, that
Yeah.
delivers a keg there. Mick Ultra had the one. That's the one with Catherine O'Hara and Willem Dafoe with their pickleball, where they're just crushing everybody in pickleball.
Apparently there was a cameo of, I don't think it's out yet, but Mick Ultra is coming out with a non-alcoholic version, and apparently
Okay.
I didn't even notice it when I was watching it, but apparently that made a cameo in there too. So I guess that's like a fifth
Okay.
beer that was shown. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
The Stella commercial with David Beckham and Matt Damon, where David finds out that that Matt Damon is his twin brother. And one thing, a chuckle, Brian, at the end of the
Yeah.
commercial, he's like, "Oh, so my brother's a famous soccer player, huh?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "How famous? Like Matt Damon famous?" He's like, "I don't know, like Ben Affleck." And Matt Damon's like, "Oh,
That's too bad.
That's too bad." So,
Yeah.
yeah. Bud Light, that's the big men on the cul-de-sac. We had Post Malone, Shane Gillis, Peyton Manning, and all in that one. You know what? Dude's never done anything to me. I don't care for Shane Gillis. I don't like him. I know he's popular now, but I'm just not. I don't think he's that funny. He did one sketch that I saw where he's talking about, I think it was his uncle, maybe, that has Down syndrome, and he sneaks grilled cheese sandwiches into restaurants.
Make
and
him at night.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. But that is, other than that, the other stuff I've seen, he's got some TV show out where he's like at working a tire center or something. He's not my thing. But there's another dude that's one of the kind of, I don't know how new he is. I just discovered him in the last year or so. Nate Bargatze, I think.
Oh yeah, he's exploding everywhere. I saw a
that
stand-up
dude's
act
good.
of his.
I like
He's
him.
good.
I like him.
Yeah.
He does the skits on SNL where he's like George Washington, and he's talking about, well, yeah, we're going to do
right.
We'll have our own system of measurement, miles, and it's like, how many feet are in a mile? Nobody knows.
That's
Nobody
right.
knows. So,
those are
that's pretty
classic.
good.
Those are really
Yeah.
good. I like those a lot. Yeah.
And then, Brian, we got one with a little drama for one of them. The
yes.
Coors Light Slow Monday, which had the sloss and all that, and featured at the end of it a case of the Mondays. And I think, Brian, you read up some info. We actually have a local brewery here in Atlanta area, Monday Night Brewing, that since I believe they said 2010, they've actually put out a mix pack of their beer called A Case of the Mondays. And they did have a little something to say about this.
Yeah, they sent a cease and desist. They've been using the Case of the Mondays, like you said, for a decade. They sent a C&D to Coors Light. A lawyer got back to them and said that, hey, this was kind of a limited shot deal. All of the stuff that we were going to do with it is already out. And our promo that's basically giving away beer ends at the end of February. So Monday Night's not very happy about it. They're thinking they're getting stomped on a little bit. And I understand their point of view. They have to protect their they have to make a show of protecting their IP, because if they don't, the next person that comes along that wants to do something with Monday or Monday Night or whatever is just going to point to, it's like, hey, Coors did something, and you didn't say anything about that. So I think that they have to do that, but it doesn't really look like they've got much of a case here. I don't think that anything's going to happen because the product's already out there. The packaging is pretty limited, even on the ones that do have the Monday's Light. It's only on some panels on there, and it's very clearly marked in other panels that it's Coors Light. So I understand they're annoyed by this because they have been using Case of the Mondays for a long time. I don't think they actually have a trademark on that term. At least that's not what they've indicated. So, or that phrase, I should say, the phrase.
That is a tough one because you know what? I'm all for protecting your IP, even if it, whether it's a big guy going after a little guy that talks to the big guy. I like to think that I look at things and as realistically as possible there. And with Monday Night, they mentioned they have a trademark on the term Monday Night as it relates to beer marketing, branding, all of that. The catch-22 here is a case of the Mondays is a fairly common term.
It is.
And I don't believe they have that trademark for beer marketing. From what I saw, what I could find, they didn't. So if it was something where this was going to be ongoing marketing that they were trying to do there, then absolutely, I think, Monday Night could and should get them to stop them to probably have some recourse with the previous branding. But I also see them saying, hey, this was a one-time promotion. It's one and done. We're okay. Now we know we're not going to do it again or whatever. Lawyers for Morrison Coors are probably pretty smart. They likely knew about Monday Night Brewing's Case of the Mondays before they did that. And they're like, this a little regional brewery out of Georgia, and by the time they can send a C&D, we'll be done with our campaign kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet that's exactly what happened. They did the risk analysis and they know that the actual possibility of anything happening.
Yeah.
And they did point out that the way the logo was created with the Mondays to give some separation, like they knew about this ahead of time. Like they designed this logo to prevent a C&D from being successful technically. Yeah. Now, Monday Night just did post on Instagram when they announced this was happening and they put out the response letter. They have a can called Coor Night.
I did see that. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a real product or if that's just a, annoying jab at them as something that they could do. And it's showing as a berry lemon sour, which definitely is far from being a Coors Light. But I'm curious now if they're going to come out with that as in kind of retaliation because, well, it looks like a real can, but you could very easily Photoshop that onto a can. So.
What was the one that Eventide did? And Eventide's closed now, but they had one that was Coors Weiser. That's right.
And they had Coors. They were small enough that I don't think the brewers ever realized it, but they had the logo for Coors and the Weiser from Budweiser in the exact fonts from those cans smashed together as the name of it. I was amused by it, but I think had the big guys known about it and it was worth their time, they would have gone after them. But
I don't think those were distributed outside of the brewery. I believe you could buy a 6-pack like at the brewery to go or something like that, but they didn't send them out in distro, and that's we see all kinds of breweries that pull, that do stuff like that all the time. Not uncommon in the least to play that kind of thing there. So
it could be argued in that case it's satirical in the way it was done. There's no way you could possibly confuse that product for either of the other two.
Yeah,
which is I think what a lot of breweries get away with sometimes. Like if it actually goes up against it, real lawyers and courts get involved. Sometimes that satire doesn't stand up, even if it's fairly obvious to the people looking at it. But
have you ever seen the TV show Nathan For You?
No, I don't think so.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. The premise is this guy goes in acting like he's kind of doing like a kitchen nightmares thing, sort of where he goes in and gives you advice to renovate your business. His advice is always horrible. It's just awful. And
you've told me about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was one where there was a struggling coffee house and he told them to just rename themselves Starbucks. And instead of being a coffee house, they would be an art gallery that had coffee or something along those lines. And dude talked to an attorney and they were talking about parody and that. And they said, in order for you to be successful with the parody, you have to be established as, someone that does parody and that. So he went to an open mic night and did like Weird Al style songs that were horrible. But anyhow, I won't ramble on it, but the guy put this big thing on, opened it up, got a ton of press. Now, of course, he was very quickly shut down, but
Of course.
but he did it. He did it. So good old parody laws there, man. Fun stuff. Well, guys, moving right along. Our beers of the week. What are we sipping on this week? Brian, what do you have on deck?
So for my pregame, I found Barrique locally, which excites me. Barrique Nandelstadt is what I drank. It's a German Pilsner made with heirloom Pilsner malt from Weyermann, and they call it the goat hop, the Hallertau Mittelfrüh hops, and it was quite refreshing, very enjoyable. And now I am drinking Sweetwater's Day Trip IPA, which is just a regular old American IPA, and drinking it because Sweetwater was nice enough to send us some, so that was
Thanks,
appreciate
Sweetwater.
that. Always love getting
right.
beer,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
And later on in the show, or maybe afterwards with the Patreon folks, I'll be drinking Maine Beer Company's Mean Old Tom, which is a stout aged on vanilla beans. That sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm getting crazy with the beers I'm drinking, but that's only 6.5%. So it's like stout, the way stout used to be before everything was a pastry stout and like double digits ABV. So looking forward to that. I've had it, but it's been a long time since I've had anything from Maine Beer Company that wasn't an IPA. So that's
cool.
That's it for me.
Good stuff. Nate, what are you sipping on?
So, being that it is a new month and it is a wet month, I'm drinking some beers in my glass tonight. So,
All right.
I went bar hopping with a buddy over the weekend, and I really messed up splitting the G. So I wanted to redeem myself. So I pre-gamed with a Guinness, and I didn't drink it out of a Guinness glass, so I couldn't split the G anyways.
Well, this story has just become totally pointless then.
Yeah,
what in
terrible.
the heck, man?
So terrible.
Yeah.
But for the main event, I'm having from Bissell Brothers their Nothing Gold Double IPA, which is a delight. And Party Nate is my roommate, and he said that this was A+.
All right. All right.
That reminds me, the Guinness thing. I was thinking about splitting the G this weekend. We were hanging out at an Irish pub, and I had a half and half. And the Guinness glass they gave me to cut right to the chase didn't have the proper Guinness logo on it. It had like an image where the Guinness was right at the top, right where the line was. So I couldn't actually split the G with that glass. They're missing completely the point of it these days. So
I mean,
Yeah.
you could have. There was still a G in Guinness there.
well, I mean, it seriously, like inhale, like I could smell it a little bit, and it would have split the G. That's how high
Right
up
there.
it was. So
Right there.
yeah, defeated the point.
What are you working on, Tim?
Good stuff. So I have got in my glass right now. This is a limited release, drinking local here today, Sweetwater Brewing Exodus Porter. And this is one that has been I'm a fan of this from years and years and years back. Kind of infamous with Sweetwater because right after it won a medal at GABF, they discontinued it. Like right after it won the medal there. So, and I've heard a lot of people comment, they're like, oh, it's a medal winning beer. Why would they discontinue? And I was like, just because it wins a medal doesn't mean it's selling, so, but they bring it back occasionally. And I don't remember the last time they canned it. They've done it a couple times and put it out in the tap room. And I know a few years back, actually probably 5 years or better now, they had it at their 420, the Sweetwater 420 Fest that they do. But I have a can of it right here, so it is out in cans again, at least for now. So that is mine, and it is just a good old classic chocolatey taste and roasty porter. Just kind of reminiscent, Brian, of those stouts you talked about, how stouts used to be. It's just
exactly
light, drinkable. I don't even know what the ABV is on this. It's 6.6, actually a little more than I thought, but still. So 6.6.
It's still not too bad considering
Porter.
what those are like. When people come out with a stout these days, if it's not 10%, it's not full of lactose and various sweet things. People are like, that's barely a stout. Like, no, right. Stout used to be an actually very easy drinking beer for the most part, but not so much anymore.
They're good to sip on there. They're good to see. Yeah, Tyler mentioned here, he said porters aren't as popular as they used to be, and that's a fact, man. People don't really look at those, but it's a great drinking beer, and kind of like my backup beer for tonight, if I get into a second one, if I get crazy, from Schoolhouse, it's called Festivus, and it's a brown ale. And it's just a great, it's got some nice roastiness to it. And again, I think I mentioned this a month or so ago, but brown ales to me a lot of times can be boring. Even if they're well done, they can just be boring beers without some kind of adjunct to them. But the one that they did there, Schoolhouse, that's one of the better ones I've had in a while. Nice flavor to it. If you want a lighter beer, but you want a little bit more than your typical Pilsner may give you, good call to go with that.
That is still like my favorite beer to have with a kind of your average, cigar, not anything that's too heavy, not anything that's too spicy. Just
Sure.
it goes well with so many things. And if it's made well, it's really enjoyable. Good amber. Actually, the brown ale better than amber. A good porter, like if you could even find one these days, is also a good choice. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Like a good good burger and fries,
Oh,
and
yeah.
a brown ale, great
Heck yeah.
pairing there. So good stuff. But yeah, all right, porters and brown ales, man. We need to make them popular again. Make porters great again.
that's right.
Mhm.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. So speaking of political statements, Brian, we've all been following the tariffs that have been thrown around. It's just been the hot topic here since the president took office again, which it feels like was hundreds of years ago with all that's happened
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
But they were put on pause for a while, but there are still tariffs that are being suggested that may happen. And one specifically is could be very critical to craft beer, or the craft beer, spirits, wine, like several of our alcoholic beverage industries.
Yeah, if you've been following the tariffs, it's basically like whiplash. Like they're going to go into effect, and then there's going to be two of them, and then they both go away, and then more, and then anyway. So we learned that the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico had been put on hold. As of last week or prior, I think there's one that went into effect on China. It was about 10% in addition to whatever was already in place. That did happen, but people don't seem to be as concerned about that, even though I think we get a lot of our products from China. But fans of Mexican import beers and Canadian whiskeys have been breathing a sigh of relief because there won't be any big price jumps for at least the next month, as long as, while those things are put on pause. But we may have jumped the gun a little bit here because last weekend, President Trump proposed a sweeping 25% tariff on steel and aluminum in all imports from all sources. And if that sounds familiar, Trump enacted a similar tariffs back in 2018, which were later suspended by the Biden administration, at least in part. There are still some of the original tariffs in place on aluminum products. I think it's a 10% deal when it was 25%. I don't know exactly, but the European Union responded with their own tariffs, which were then temporarily suspended at the same time ours were back then. But there's some stuff still in place. If the EU does not act, a 50% duty on American whiskey will still go into effect automatically on April 1st. And that is already on the books. It has nothing to do with this latest round of proposed tariffs. According to the Brewers Association, if the steel tariffs go into effect, breweries could see increased prices for kegs, steel tanks, brew houses, and building materials, which makes sense. Increased keg costs would disproportionately affect craft brewers because they rely more heavily on draft sales, and they really don't need that. The big guys can probably take the hit and pass it along, and it's not going to really bug them as much. The aluminum tariffs would obviously increase the price of cans. We don't know exactly how much, though, because the 25% that's being proposed could include what's on the books already as current tariffs, or it could be an additional 25% on top of what is already in place on tariffs. So we could be looking at like a 35% tax or tariff on aluminum. So that would be terrible. The European Union has not officially responded to the proposed tariffs, but it is assumed, should they go into effect, tariffs on whiskey and American-made motorcycles specifically, and a few other things would go back into effect as well. So we'll see how this is going. The last proposed tariffs didn't happen. I don't know. These did happen before. Maybe they won't happen this time. It's hard to say, really. Nobody knows.
There's no telling. We'll just wait and see, I guess. That's all. We don't have a choice but to wait and see, really.
That's all we can do. Yeah.
Crazy, man.
We probably won't have to wait too long because they stuff changed really quickly the last 2 weeks. It was
Yeah.
proposed and then it went away. Like proposed, escalated, gone. Proposed, escalated, gone. So maybe it'll follow that path, and we won't
I
have
don't know
these
what to
after all.
believe anymore. We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
nobody
see where it
does.
lands, man. Well, Brian, some big news out of Texas. We see all the breweries closing all the time. You know, I actually heard some news here in Georgia of a brewery opening soon. For
Oh,
you know what, people will probably know this little town in Georgia because of their onions. But your Vidalia onions come from Vidalia, Georgia, and there is a brewery opening in Vidalia, Georgia. As you may guess, Vidalia is not like a big mecca or anything there. So, but it is. There's some disagreement on the pronunciation. The brewery is named after a river, and it's spelled Ohoopee, which to me would look like Ohoopee River, but apparently the locals pronounce it like the double O in foot. So Ohoopee River
oh,
would be it. So
wasn't there a whole
anyhow,
Family Guy thing where Peter danced around the end zone singing "Oh Hoopy" something or other? Do you remember that? No.
no, I
No.
think you're mixing some things up.
Okay, I might be.
Maybe from what I know, but anyhow. So Brian, breweries are still opening. We see them every now and then. The breweries are still opening, but that is not the big news story that we're going to share with you today. In San Antonio, their largest craft brewer has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Yeah. So the Alamo Beer Company, San Antonio's largest craft brewery, filed for Chapter 11, as you said, with the company is estimating their assets and liabilities, both of those being between $1 million and $10 million. That's kind of a weird thing. These, when they file, they don't give a very specific number. So it looks like they could be like close to equal. But anyway, last fall, the owner of Alamo Beer put the brewery property up for sale, saying the real estate value of the property had eclipsed its production side value. The brewery's production has been running at less than 20% capacity. It's capable of 40,000 barrels annually. So that means around only 8,000 barrels are actually getting brewed every year off a 40,000 barrel brewery. And this is after they merged with Viva Beer and they bought Shotgun Seltzer to shore up their unused capacity back in 2023. So they're at 20% after adding 2 other brands. If all goes well, Chapter 11 will allow the business to reorganize, pay its debts, and resume normal operations. But it's a tough market these days, so there's no telling what could happen. And if they don't have big plans on how they're going to change their business model to sell more beer, I don't know if this is going to help them out at all, really. But
Yeah. I don't know. Tough place to be right now, man. With that, we saw another brewery here put up a Kickstarter saying, "Hey, we need some help to keep our doors open," and that. And it's even if you get a little influx of cash, man, it's something's got to change. You know, you got in this boat for a certain reason. What's going to happen that's going to make any difference going forward? You know, tough to say that with this climate.
You got to figure out a way to get that influx of cash to come in via the chain of like sales of beer. Like get them to buy your beer. Like the one-time influx of cash is going to help you out once. It's like
it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid.
It's the difference between feeding a man a fish and teaching him how to fish. Like let's get they need to learn how to fish so they can get their own money, you know?
Anyway. Yeah. Crazy stuff, man. Wish them all the best of luck there.
Yes. Definitely.
So, Brian, we have talked about Fonio malt in the past. Very interesting, very drought resistant, ancient grain native to West Africa. And I'm looking forward. I didn't read the details on this story you're about to share. I did see the headline, and I wasn't sure what made this unique to the one Boulevard did, but there's a brewery in Utah that claims a beer first using Fonio malt. What's the scoop there?
Yeah, so Garrett Oliver has been championing the use of Fonio grain because of the things you said. It's used in African cooking. It can thrive in poor soil. It's drought resistant. If people start using it, it would have a positive impact on African economies and potentially the environments. But Keto's Brewing in Salt Lake City claims to have brewed the very first 100% Fonio beer in the U.S. and probably the second one made of its kind in the world. So the world's first was actually the collaboration between Carlsberg and Brooklyn Brewery, and that happened in Europe at Carlsberg. So that's why this one is the first in the U.S. The resulting beer is gluten-free, and it's almost clear when you pour it into a glass. Apparently, brewing a 100% Fonio beer is difficult without the right equipment, stuck mashes and things like that. Keto's Brewing uses a special mash press filter, which applies high pressure to extract fermentables from the grain, which is how they're able to do this, and why maybe other people haven't been able to do it. Reportedly, the beer has notes of flavor notes of passion fruit, lychee, and white peach that come directly from the grain. No hops were used in the making of this beer, which is interesting, and apparently no fruit either. So, yeah, it's. I'd like to try this.
So is it a beer? If
I
there's
don't
no
know.
hops, did they
With
do a
no hops?
Groot?
Yeah, kind of. It's actually it may be the world's first Fonio Groot.
Fonio Groot, 100%
Well,
Fonio Groot, huh?
they've been so the thing is when you claim that it's kind of weird because I'm like, surely somebody in Africa where this is grown has fermented some Fonio and drank it with maybe some herbs or maybe just by itself. So calling it the world's first may be difficult. So I wonder at that, but apparently nobody's arguing that it's been done before.
That it's not. No one's fighting back on this right now. Interesting. I still, you know what? We did try some Fonio beers, didn't we? From Patagonia, and who'd they do that with?
Was
I
that
forget.
Fonio or was that Kernza? Was that right?
Oh, that
you're
might have
right.
been Kernza.
I think
Kernza
you're right.
grain, I think
Yeah,
is what it was. It was a different thing,
okay.
but a similar
Gotcha.
concept, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting stuff. Well, Brian, before we move on, I think it would be a great time to give a shout out to our sponsor, Truck and Tap.
Yeah. So a funny thing happened this week, or really more towards the end of last week. But the temperatures hit the 70s here. I saw 72 as a high. And a week or two ago, it was below freezing, and there was snow on the ground, and we had to watch out for ice and everything like that. And all this unexpected warmth has got me thinking about patio season coming up, tiki drinks, and the fruity beers that emulate those tiki drinks. And a good place for all those things, patios, tiki drinks, and fruity beers, is Truck and Tap. So let's talk about those tiki-like beers in my picks for this week. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Anderson Valley's Framboise Rose Goza. It's a Goza made with rose hips, raspberry puree, and the appropriate amount of salt to style for a Goza. And I haven't had a Goza in a while, but this beer definitely seems like it needs a little umbrella and, I don't know, maybe like a Valentine card because the roses and everything. So it's appropriate for many reasons this week. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Six Bridges Sour Continuum. There are a number of fruited kettle sours in the Sour Continuum line, and this one happens to be made with orange, blueberry, and pomegranate. I don't know if this was inspired by a cocktail necessarily, but it does sound like something I would put in a blender with rum, and I may at some point actually do that. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Reformation Sour Alani, which is a fruited kettle sour made with grape, apple, cranberry, and hibiscus. I think they consider this a rosé sour ale officially, but I'm going to allow it because it sounds like a good beer for warm weather, and I could see that being some kind of a brunch type of alcoholic drink, perhaps. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Bearded Iris's Flamingo Road. It's another fruited kettle sour, this time with raspberry and strawberry. I've had this one before. I think we all have in the studio back in the day, and it's just great. It's a great beer. And there's no other reason for that. It's just wonderful. Of course, you don't have to go, with an actual a beer. You can go with an actual cocktail instead of Truck and Tap. They do have a full bar, a list of specialty cocktails, and a cocktail is a really good idea if you happen to be visiting the Overproof Rum Bar at the Alpharetta location. For details on that and everything else going on at Truck and Tap, check out truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate it very much. Brian, something you probably cannot get at Truck and Tap right now is a beer infused with cannabis.
Probably not.
I don't think
I've
we can do
ever
it, but
seen that listed.
maybe if they become legal, Truck and Tap could add them because a study shows that 50% of beer drinkers would try a beer infused with the old sticky icky.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. According to a study published by the British Food Journal, over 50% of the people who identify as beer drinkers expressed an openness to try cannabis infused beverages, but they're picky about it apparently. Beer drinkers are slightly more willing to try THC-infused beverages, 56% of them, than CBD-infused beverages, 53%. I'm not sure why. I always thought CBD was the safe one of the two,
I
and
don't
the
know.
THC was the risky.
I really need to talk to that 3% there and see what's up there.
Figure out what's going on there. About 28% are unwilling to try either THC or CBD beverages. 57% of those surveyed have used cannabis recreationally in the past year, and that's not terribly surprising, to be honest. According to the study, 54% of marijuana consumers say they drink less or no alcohol after using cannabis, which also not surprising. I think we've been hearing that a lot. Another study out of Canada, where marijuana is federally legal, found that legalization was associated with a decline in beer sales, suggesting a substitution effect. So we've seen arguments on both sides of that, but it does seem to me that the indications are once you get into the cannabis stuff, you're not as interested in the.
It seems to be a little correlation there, right?
Yeah, it seems like people have been. I think the people that have been pushing for additional legalization are like, oh, it won't affect your beer sales at all. No, not even. Nah, I think it will. I think it will. I'm not saying it for better or worse. I mean, but yeah, it will. I think it seems pretty clear that it has an impact. So, yeah.
All right, interesting. Would you try them, Brian?
I have tried a few. You know what? I did try a powder little satchel in a water bottle one time that I got from one of the Nappy Roots folks back when such things were a little harder to come by, and it was pleasant. I mean, it's not something I would do very often, but yeah.
Brian, I sent you home with samples of THC and CBD infused.
That's right.
Cans a couple weeks ago.
There are.
I work in this industry.
He does. I do.
That's right.
I have the first can you gave me is still in the fridge, and I haven't reached for it right away. I'm not saying I won't. I will try it out at some point in time.
He probably won't.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a call out. I was just like, oh, but they kind of taste like cocktails, so maybe he'd be into them.
So go ahead, Nate.
Well, so I was gonna say, in that I work in this industry, we do see a lot of conversion of beer drinkers flipping over to the sticky icky beverage, early adopters. And then at least in the state of Georgia right now, it's not strictly legal for us to sell our keg products in. But we definitely could be on at Shark and Tap, just in a package format.
Interesting. Tyler says that Tyler Smurf says he wants THC that tastes like beer. So fire you up take a big old toke off of that barrel-aged stout.
Big old bowl of stout weed.
Big old hazy. A hazy.
Oh,
my company's actually in the process of making a THC infused non-alcoholic beer. So
okay.
Well, I don't think that's what. Wait, hold on.
He wants THC that tastes like beer. This is going to be a THC infused.
Oh, I was thinking he wants to pack a bowl with an IPA.
Oh,
that's what I'm thinking. Well, that's what I'm going to go with. That's what I'm going to go with.
People do that kind of thing with their bongs, right? They use
the bong water,
the water pipe, and they've just put I don't know beer or something in there. I don't know.
Lettuce works.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. I've been around when people do it. I understand. You know what? I think it's either beer or like Mountain Dew or maybe both. I've heard of people. I've heard various friends that like to partake regularly talking about such things. So
all of them. I've mentioned before. I kind of wish that THC had the effect on me that others claim it do, or that the reports claim it does, because it just doesn't. And if it was something that you could, if I could have a little gummy bear and just chill out and sleep well and be chill and calm down, but I get sick and I can't sleep and I'm queasy and I'm shaky, and who wants that, man? That's not what I'm looking for in recreational drug use. So,
that's definitely not it. I mean,
this is the opposite of what I wanted.
I only get like that after many, many stouts. Like it takes a lot of stouts.
Yeah. So interesting though. And I did notice, to clarify, I said that beer drinkers would try a beer infused with it, but it just says beverages in general. This study does not specify beer.
Not specifically beer, but they're just in general. Would you be willing to try it? And
interesting.
A good number of people would be, over half anyway. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Here, so John is sharing with us that in Cincy, 50 West Brewing in Cincy had a THC hard seltzer, and they said they did that to draw in a younger crowd. But actually, the soccer moms that are having a gummy at night, they were going for that seltzer.
Oh,
Mama
how
was
about
trying to
that?
chill. Mama was trying to chill out from dealing with those youngins.
You know what? That's just that's a new crowd. That's a new source of revenue. That's the new customers. Man, I would, if I were them, I'd go with it. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we want you to come on in. You know, like
Right.
we're looking for customers to help keep us going. You know, like if you're
Yeah.
into it and we can sell it, let's do it. You know,
I wonder what a bunch of stone soccer moms would be like. Which would be a more troubling crowd? Young folks stoned on your seltzer, or a group of soccer moms stoned on your seltzer?
oh, I don't know.
Because I think probably the term soccer mom is used derogatorily.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm sure.
And I
Yeah.
think the connotation is kind of the Karen, when you say,
Mhm.
"Oh, soccer moms." This and that,
Oh, yeah. Is that code for Karen now? I'm like, there's so many
Well, I don't
things.
think so. And maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but that's kind of what I take it to when they're like, "Oh, these are all soccer moms." It's it's kind of said in that vein. And so a bunch of, man, they may be better to deal with actually if they, okay, I'm going to replace soccer moms. If we're talking about Karens here, then a gaggle of Karens, which I think is the technical term, would
Yes.
probably maybe better to deal with a
Probably.
little bit of herbs in them. They'd be like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I don't even need to talk to the manager anymore."
That's right. They'd
So,
be less hateful. Like I
yeah,
want to talk to. They're like,
that's
I
what's
want to
up.
talk to the manager and tell him how good you are.
That's right. I'm gonna bake you a
How
cake.
how great your service has been.
Right.
How much I love this place.
I got Karens are upset when they find out the next day they got stoned and they were nice to people.
Yeah.
Oh God, was I nice to people last night?
Just
Yeah, you were super nice.
In a cold sweat, regretting everything. Oh,
Ah,
I can't
this is
believe. I
terrible.
can't believe I didn't.
They're out there
Yeah.
teasing their hair up into the
Yeah.
shit. I got to get back to myself. Got to get back to myself there. Good stuff. Brian, Beer Purchasers Index says beer post the highest January reading since 2021.
Yeah, some nice optimistic numbers to kind of get the year started off with. The highest numbers since 2021, which it's good to hear. The overall sales number for January 2025 was 48, and with the beer purchasers index, the numbers are interesting. A number above 50 means distributors are ordering more beer. So that means sales are increasing above 50. A number below 50 means they're ordering less beer. So there's a decrease. The further you get away from 50 in either direction, the faster the increase or the decrease is going. So at 48, that means sales are only slightly down, and it beat January 2024, which was down by 5 points. So it was like a 43. So it was a much faster decline. So technically still sort of down, but slowing up a little bit, closer to neutral. Wholesalers have a pretty neutral outlook on the beer market as a whole. In terms of bright spots, import and below premium beers are selling well. Premium light beer is still doing okay, though not as strong as before. Flavored malt beverages, hard seltzers, and regular premium beers are holding steady. Unfortunately, craft beer and hard cider are the only two categories where sales were actually worse than last year. So we are still declining. We're declining and at a faster rate than last year. So that is not a good thing to hear. But beer on the whole is doing reasonably well. It's might even be improving. So remains to be seen how this goes. I can't imagine the decline will continue like this forever. I think I'm hoping and assuming at some point we'll see that number slow down and we'll hit at equilibrium when we hit
level
a point
off
where,
somewhere, huh?
Yeah. People
Okay.
skipping out on trends, moving away. At a certain point, we'll hit the people that are just not going anywhere, that like the beer and are going to continue to drink it. So that's where we're going to be.
It is a little unfortunate when the industry's in a place where you're celebrating that things aren't down as much as they were. It's like, oh yeah, it's still down, but not as much.
Not as much.
Not
the
as bad.
decline is slowing. It's not
slowing
as
decline.
fast. Yeah,
Small victories, man. Small victories. So,
indeed.
Brian, beverage trends, always fun to look at what trends may be in that. Total Wine did some trend predictions. And if you don't know Total Wine, they're a huge chain. I think most people, I know they're in California. We've got them here. They're pretty spread
Yeah,
out. Total Wine. I think some of the stores, they call them Total Wine and More. And,
yeah, yeah,
you've got your beer and spirits and all. It just depends on the store. Like I think here in Georgia, there's a law that, like, we have several locations around, but you can only have 3 locations that has spirits or
yeah.
something along those lines. 2
Two.
locations, 2
Two.
locations. So we have some that just have beer and wine because they can only have spirits at 2 locations there. So within a certain area. But that being said, of course, being as large as they are, they've got a pretty crack team on looking at trends and what's going to happen. So Brian, what's the scoop on this?
Yeah, Brewbound actually had a chat with their management team, and they got the scoop on the trends that this team is seeing. These are the people that make the decisions, and when they decide to buy something or not buy something, it's going to impact a lot of the U.S. and a lot of what we can see, buy and drink around the country. And here's what they're seeing. So we already know that non-alcoholic drinks are a hot category. That's pretty obvious. But they're noticing that 80% of the sales of NA products are to people who are also buying alcohol. So it's truly, when you buy non-alcoholic beverages, most people are still buying alcohol at the same time. So we're not seeing an influx of people that are just quitting completely. They're just cutting back or being a little bit more responsible, perhaps. Smaller sizes are in when it comes to beverages. Total Wine is seeing strong sales of smaller package sizes like 200 ml cans of cocktails, and that's about a 6.8 ounce can, if I did the math correctly. So these little individual shot cocktail things are hot right now, and it's all about convenience. The key is convenience. They're small, they're easy to carry around, and it's a pre-made cocktail. You don't have to go through all the effort, and it's a decent tasting drink. So I think that's basically what that is. Though I imagine this is an opportunity for beer to get in on this. I'm like, maybe beer could package in smaller amounts, like maybe some of your big pastry stouts. I think we've seen, Variant has done like a smaller versions of their
cans
pastry
or
stouts that are like
bottles.
8-ounce sizes or even 6-ounce
Yep.
sizes. So there's an opportunity here for a little bang for your buck in a really convenient size package. But resealable bottles are and cans are gaining in popularity. I didn't realize this was a thing, but apparently it suggests consumers may be drinking more mindfully, which really technically means they're just not drinking all of whatever it is at once, and they want to reseal it. This would be great if we could ever get still lambics and some of the stiller stouts off the ground. Like if we could get packages of resealable still lambics, how great would that be? Wonderful opportunity here.
I'm
folks.
in. Count me
Yeah.
in for it. Yeah.
And my least favorite trend is non-carbonated drinks like hard iced teas and lemonades are trending due to their easy drinking nature. I was actually talking a little bit about this earlier this week at a beer store with somebody, and the idea came up of introducing the carbonation adverse Gen Z to cask ales, and if only that would work. And I think this has come up before on the show, but if we could get them to get down with cask ale in get that lighter carbonation, that easier drinkability, maybe there could be a match made
carbonated, but it's not as carbonated.
Exactly. Yeah, a little bit of sparkle, but it's very, very nice. Like we were saying earlier, THC beverages are on their radar, and at the location nearest to me, THC infused beverages have actually stolen a good amount of space from craft beer. So, I wonder about the legality of it, because I'm like, you have all this stuff on the shelf. I wasn't even sure this was totally legal here, but they got a whole section.
Apparently, gray area right now is what I've been told, is that they're operating within a gray area. It's not specifically legal, but I guess what they're doing is not. It has to be hemp derived, is my understanding.
Yes, probably.
And so right now they're in a gray area because they're getting THC and CBD from hemp, and hemp products are legal. So they got a little bit of a gap to close if they want to get them off the shelves.
Okay, so that explains it.
That's my understanding.
I have purposely not looked at those at all in protest for them stealing real estate from craft beer.
Your beer shelf space.
Like, if you could have put this anywhere else you've got like shelves and shelves and shelves dedicated to wine. You had to put this here and take away space from craft beer. But anyway, one last thing in the spirits world, and this is really interesting. Apparently, chocolate whiskey is now a trend to watch, and the word is the bourbon market is finally shifting in favor of the consumer. So maybe we're not going to get raked over the coals anytime we want to buy anything that's even remotely interested in bourbon. Maybe we'll see it on the shelf in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that exactly means. I'm a little excited because I've kind of given up on the whiskey market just because it's just
crazy.
junk.
Brian, any hobby I'm in, and I've, tinned fish, cigars, beer, whiskey, fragrances, all of that. There's always some aftermarket hype sells.
Yeah.
And I've never bought into it, man. It's just not worth it. There is a cologne called Creed Aventus. I think a lot of people, that's, if you step into the world of nerd cologne, that's one of the first ones you're introduced to. But there are certain batches of that they consider hype batches, where this typically sells. The retail price on it is $400, can be had at discounters at $200, but people are selling bottles at $1,000 plus because this one's got a real fruity opening. I'm just not having it, man. I'm just not going to buy a cologne for $1,000 that's really, and we're not talking that old, like we're going back 2016, 2017, 2018 for some of these. But yeah, like you said, spirits. I know someone who would go out and buy a case of a whiskey that he had people where he'd get his hands on it. He'd get a case and immediately triple the price on it and resell it. And those people are
awful.
They're just terrible.
Terrible
Terrible
people.
for the hobby.
They've
any
ruined the whole
hobby.
thing for the rest of us. Yeah,
They do, man.
That's
They do.
why I've given up on it. They go out and there's nothing left on the shelf because they've bought it, immediately marked it up, and they're reselling it. And I hate that, and I'm not a fan of it. If I could buy this, I remember back when I could actually buy some of these more interesting bottles off the shelf, or just know somebody like, oh, I'll set one aside for you, and I get one. It wasn't a big deal, but yeah, it's wrecked now, and I hope it comes
people
back,
going to beer releases and literally loading up a cargo van. We had that happen to us when we went to Hunapoo's Day one year.
Yes, yeah.
Because for some reason, I don't know why they did it. This is a good story. I don't know if we've shared this on the show recently. But we went down to Hunapoo's Day, and it was a good time. We had friends meet up from all over the country down in Tampa for this. For those not familiar with it, Cigar City Brewing Hunapoo's Day, when they released their big Mexican stout down there. And it's during Tampa Bay Beer Week. There's a big festival, and they do the beer release. And they were sought after. I don't think it's quite as sought after as it once was. I don't even know if they still do it now that Wayne Wombles is gone.
They might not. Haven't heard anything about it. Yeah.
But you go down there, and they were normally very allotted, the number of bottles you could buy, because everybody wanted them, and you bought your ticket and got them in there. Well, something happened where, one, they had counterfeit tickets. Two, they decided not to do, or either they did no limits or they had these crazy high limits. And it was like a husband and wife and their neighbor were all going through and buying a couple cases of these beers. And certain people who bought tickets to the event that were supposed to get like 2 bottles came with your ticket or something like that, couldn't get them. Like, they ran out. And
crazy.
It was, I mean, people literally almost rioted. There's videos out there on YouTube of what happened, and they
closing the shutters and
closing the garage doors, man. They had a table set up inside like a big bay door, and people were getting angry, and they're like, we're out of Hunapoo, and they slammed the garage door down. And then the Tampa police immediately had everyone pack their stuff and clear out there. So that was an interesting time. Very interesting.
Remember the social media take on that from people that weren't there. It's like, well, look at these dumbass hooligans that are, doing all this stuff, outside of it, like so uncouth. What's wrong with them? No, these people got shafted out of some beer they paid for. Because, and people basically forged their way into the event. It was extremely poorly managed. So yeah, it was Yeah, there were some people that acted up a little bit, but the thing is there were a few chants that made it into videos, but nobody did anything. There was no
No,
actual,
nobody
there
did.
was
There
no
were people.
violence, no vandalism that I'm aware of anyway. But
No, people were
yeah,
salty. They were getting
yeah,
irritable, but no one got out of order. They were just irritable there. So
I'm
I
annoyed
don't.
because I had cash in my pocket for buying it, and
Yeah.
I think my pocket got picked. Like I
Oh,
went for my
you
cash and it
did,
was
didn't
gone.
you? That's
Yeah,
right. I
remember that?
forgot about that.
Had a
And I
couple
mean, we're
$100 in
talking
there
two,
for
three hundred
bottles.
dollars there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I got
That's
ripped.
what I thought.
I got ripped off at that thing. I think that's the
Crazy.
only time I know of that where my pocket was effectively picked.
I
So
forgot
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yep.
Wow. Wow. Crazy. I can't open the link from within our software here, and I'm going to say this screen name wrong, but beerdao.eth on Twitter, he sent us a link to resealable caps for cans, talking
That's
about
pretty
Oh,
the
cool looking.
resealable packaging there. So,
well, that's
I don't know.
yeah,
I think if you need to reseal your beer can, maybe you just shouldn't be drinking beer, unless
yeah,
they're your long beers, bro. Maybe you get halfway
yeah.
through a big stout long beer and you need to cap it off there.
Well, there are some beers that are like some of the big stouts that are now put in cans instead of the
Yeah.
bottles. And I could see, and they're not highly carbonated anyway. If you could reseal those up and put them in the fridge and then hit them again the next day,
Yeah.
whatever little bit of carbonation in there, you could probably lose it. But in the case of some of the motor oil stouts, it doesn't matter. You can just
Well,
cap it
like
over and it'd be fine.
just last week, you and I got together, and the beer that I drank 2 weeks ago on the show from Variant Brewing, the stout that they had with coffee and all that, I'm not going to drink a half liter, or that was a liter bottle. I'm not going to drink a liter of beer on my own on a Wednesday night of a big stout, 12% stout. So I drank what I wanted to drink, and I didn't have a resealable cap, but I did have a roll of electrical tape.
That's right.
So I taped that sucker shut and put it back in the fridge and ended up sharing with Brian when we caught up. So,
And I
did
appreciate that.
resell my beer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. And it was fine. It was
Fine.
nothing wrong
Yeah,
with it
it
at
wasn't
all.
heavily carbonated or anything. So let's see. Nate dropped the link in our chat here. Let's take a quick look. Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Oh, you know what? I was thinking what he was talking about. Let's see if I can shoot. You know what, guys? We're gonna have to end the stream here, but let's see. Let me see if I can do. We've got a screen share setting here. Let's see if I can get this in here. I'm messing up our podcast. I'll do this after we wrap the show.
Yeah, we do
So
have to close out the podcast.
we're gonna close the show up. I'll edit this part out. Y'all, that about wraps it up for this week's show. We thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us this week. We hope that you have a good rest of your week, and do not forget to drink local. Cheers. Clear. All right. Let's see.
So there's a different resealable cap. I was thinking it was something you'd snap on top of it that would clip onto the very top of the can and just seal it that way. But
let's see. I'm not going to share the audio. I don't think it has audio anyhow, but let's see, guys. All right. Let me get our slide out of the way. There we go. So there it is.
Oh yeah, there we go.
There it is.
Is
that something that comes like on the can like that? Because that looks like that would make a can expensive.
Oh,
but I guess maybe if it's just simple plastic, maybe not.
It looks like that's already like pre-attached to the can.
Yeah. And it could be, I'm sure they're not going to put it on 12 packs of Miller Lite.
Probably not.
That's not one. But maybe if you did have canned cocktails, higher beer, or mixers, maybe something where you may not use it all at once. All right.
Yeah,
I'm curious. That's interesting. Got a special filler to use that. The opening, drinking, how to drink. Looks like they got rules on that. It has a smooth laminar liquid flow, which is always nice.
I wonder if it would be advantageous for beer because of the way it flows out. It doesn't quite have the same flow. And I think that I'm not sure if the way the beer flows out of the top would be advantageous for beer, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Interesting.
I would have to try it and see. Maybe it'd be fine. I don't know.
Interessante.
Yeah.
Exo, if you see our podcast, which I'm sure you won't, send us some kind of beverages with those lids. We want to try them out. We want to see what they're all about.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's using these right now or if they are, but well, that's interesting. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Cool
Good stuff.
We are going to need to end the live stream here, but thanks so much for hanging with us. If you are a Patreon supporter, and if you're not a Patreon supporter, go to patreon.com/beerguys. Any support will be appreciated. We'll send you some swag, and we will get you in our Discord chat where our Patreon supporters can join us for the after party to have a beer. Nate will be putting that link over in the chat right now, but y'all have a good week, and we will see you soon.